Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Iram Sadiq and I am working as Assistant Professor in Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, Faisalabad Medical University. Today I will discuss a case presentation of dissociative disorder. Let's start with the case presentation. First of all, we will discuss its biodata, then presenting complaints, and then detail of the case. Miss R, 18 years old, unmarried, matric, resident of Faisalabad, admitted via OPD into psychiatry ward. Her informants are her mother and patient herself, and there seems to be reliable. So the patient was presented with headache for the last 10 days, attacks of unconsciousness for last 3 days. The detail of history is this is third admission of patient with the same complaints in psychiatry ward. This episode was precipitated by the conflict in the family. Complaints of headache in the frontal region of the head, dull pain with low intensity, not radiating towards any site, remain continuous whole day. Pain is relieved automatically without any medication. Patient had attacks of unconsciousness 3 days back associated with headache. She suddenly became unconscious for a whole day, got consciousness for few minutes in between. 3 to 4 episodes of unconsciousness are in 3 days. There is no history of tongue bite, aura, urinary or fecal incontinence, any behavioral disturbance, nausea and vomiting. Finally, she got some intramuscular injection from nearby health facility and then brought to the OPD of civil hospital. Regarding past psychiatric history, there are a history of 2 episodes of same illness and admission in the same ward 3 and 6 years back. Her past medical and surgical history is unremarkable. Regarding her family history, mother and father are alive. Mother is 45 years old, housewife, father 65 years old, in charge of a madrasa. Patient has 2 sisters and 1 brother. Elder sister is matric, married and having 1 child. Her younger sister is student in the same madrasa. Her elder brother is matric and he is laborer. He is married and having 1 child. So her birth was normal, developmental milestones were normal, early childhood was unremarkable. She went to school at the age of 5 years. Her academic record was good. She got education up to matric. Her relationships in the school was normal. Now she remained in her house for the last 2 years and teaching in madrasa in the evening. She is unmarried. There is no history of any drug abuse and there is no forensic history. Patient lives in a 5-marla house with her family. She lived in a joint family system with her uncle. Main bread earners are her brother and uncle. Financial difficulties are reported by the family. Pre-morbidly, her personality she had very few friends, reserved in character, regular in prayers, in leisure activities she did stitching. So this is all about her history. Now we will do her physical examination and general physical examination. A young female, well oriented in time, place and person, having following signs. Her pulse is 82 per minute, blood pressure is 120/80, respiratory rate is 14 per minute, temperature is normal. Rest of her systemic examination including central nervous system, cardiovascular system, gastrointestinal system and respiratory system are unremarkable. Now about her mental state examination. A young female, well groomed, wearing shalwar kameez, cooperative, remain active throughout the interview. Her eye contact and rapport are established. There are no abnormal movements seen and labile indifference was seen, which is the difference between her verbal response and emotional difference between the verbal and emotional response. Her talk was normal, her mood was euthymic and thinking process couldn't assess any abnormal thing. Her perception was normal, cognitive functions were intact. Her insight regarding her illness was absent. This is the list of her physical investigations. If you can see, her HB is 11, liver functions are normal, hepatitis B C status is negative, her RFP is a normal, urine examination and CT scan brain is also normal. So what is the diagnosis? On the basis of her history, her mental state examination and her investigation, the differential diagnosis is dissociative conversion disorder, and the other differentials may be somatization disorder and depression. So now we will discuss her management, psychological management and pharmacological management. As dissociative disorder, the psychological management plays an important role in its treatment. Initially, we make a rapport with the patient, then did catharsis, psychoeducate the patient about the problem, that this is not the physical problem, this is psychological problem, educate her properly. Then we identify her stressors. After identification of stressors, we identify the reinforcers of that stressors, and this will we do in cognitive behavioral therapy. Relaxation procedures were done with the patient, including deep breathing, meditation, imaginary or muscle relaxation, then extension, then contingency management, then we did behavioral contracts with the patient and response costs. Cost benefit analysis, then cognitive restructuring, coping self-statements and family therapy. These treatments we will discuss at the end of presentation. I will discuss these also at the end of presentation. There is no particular pharmacological treatment for dissociative disorder. If needed, treat the underlying cause. If patient is anxious, we can give her anxiolytics, but for the shorter period, and if there is underlying depression, then antidepressant for the particular period. Now I will discuss with you people what dissociative disorder is. We will give a brief literature review about the dissociative disorder and its treatment. Dissociative disorder is defined as a hypothetical mechanism whereby psychological processes relating to consciousness are split or fragmented. If we see the brief history of hysteria, in ancient Greek medical text, hysteria was thought to result from abnormality of position or function of the uterus. But later years of 19th century, Charcot believed that the symptoms of hysteria were caused by functional disorder of the brain. Later, pyrogeny meant that the patient has lost the normal integration between various parts of the mental functioning. Jenny believed that this dissociation led to a loss of awareness of certain aspects of psychological functioning that would otherwise be within awareness. So most of the convergent disorders presents as apparent neurological abnormalities like paralysis, blindness, and mutism are the most common symptoms. Convergent disorders can present with any motor or sensory symptoms, including any of the following: weakness, paralysis of a limb or entire body, hysterical paralysis or motor convergent disorders, impaired vision, hysterical blindness, or impaired hearing. And this is some of the etiological theories of dissociative disorder. We will discuss this theory one by one. First is the psychodynamic theorist, then the social factors or family theorist. There are some learning theories in their etiology, neurophysiological mechanism, cognitive explanation, and cultural explanation. Now we will discuss these theories one by one. According to the psychodynamic theories, they said that use explanatory concepts of conversion of emotional distress into physical symptoms which have symbolic meaning. So there might be some psychological trauma in the childhood, or there might be in the some psychological disturbances, and these will convert into the physical symptoms. According to the social factors, dissociation appears to be major determinants of the onset and development of conversion symptoms. According to family theorists, Families structured their interaction around somatic topics. Become Such somatic topics can become a topic of family attentions, and families use state of patients as excuse to avoid difficult issues. So, such somatic topics, which are the hot discussion of some families, can lead to the dissociation in the same families. According to the learning theories, there is social learning theories which said that the importance of imitation in the development of the disorder, and according to classical conditioning, stress-related physiological changes produce temporary discomfort. It becomes associated with stress. So finally, what we see that dissociation is associated with stress. Such stress which cannot, sometimes patients are not aware of their such kind of stressful thoughts. These stressful thoughts can lead to the dissociation from consciousness and lead to the physical symptoms which are not explainable by physical investigations, which we have discussed previously, that patient might be presented with headache, with attacks of unconsciousness, with blindness, paralysis of the limbs, and these all things were not, these were cleared, and these were not explainable by their physical diseases. And what neurophysiological mechanism occur? Functional neuroimaging has yielded results which are compatible with the ideas of malfunctioning of normal interactions between regions of brain concerned with the intention to move and those involved in the initiation of the movement. And the cognitive explanation of dissociation is the symptoms are caused by chronic activation of the representation of symptoms stored within memory, the process being driven by attention directed to these representations. And the cultural explanation of dissociation is some of the phenomenon classified as conversion disorder in Western countries may in some other cultures be accepted as possession states. So this is the classification of dissociation according to ICD-10, including dissociative amnesia, in which the patient pretend to as the forgetfulness that he became amnesic and he lost his memory. Dissociative fugue, in which the patient can travel a long distance and he will not have a memory about that traveling. Dissociative stupor, patient become unconscious and he is not aware of his surroundings. Dissociative identity disorder, the patient may forget his or her identity and can be presented into another identity. There are some trance and possession disorders. Possession states like occupied some like some evil occupied from some jinns or jinnat or witches in our culture, and dissociative disorders not otherwise specified. Some of the identity disorders. So this is the epidemiology, and incidence rate is 5 to 12 per 100,000 per year, and prevalence vary with figures around 50 per 100,000 in psychiatric units. In our setup, psychiatric unit at Faisalabad, 5 to 6 patient indoor per day and 10 to 14 per day outdoor departmental patient we are seeing. These dissociative disorders may be comorbid with depressive disorders, with anxiety disorders, somatization disorders, rarely with schizophrenia, and some of the personality disorders also. The main comorbid disorder is underlying depression. Sometimes when the depression is not addressed timely, it can be presented in the form of dissociation, and there might be underlying anxiety disorders also. So we have to assess both these initially. There is a famous study of Slaughter which was done in 1965, and he did this study with 85 patients, and he followed up these patients for 7 years, and what he found that 30 had definite organic disease, 34 had definite psychiatric disorder, and rest of 21 confirmed dissociative conversion disorder. So initially when a patient is labeled as dissociative disorder, he or she might be develop organic disease after that episode, might be they develop psychiatric disorder after that episode, and you can see the figures. Only 21 patients out of 85 patients, they develop dissociative. They continue the diagnosis of dissociation even after 7 years. So initially, a dissociative may not be always dissociative. So every time when the patient came, reevaluate his or her diagnosis. And the prognosis of the dissociative disorder depends upon these factors. If the history is short, patient is young, having no personality issue, cooperative family hai, then it good prognostic factors. But if the history is long, there is underlying personality issues, old age or prolonged stresses, the history can be poor outcome. The management is under psychological and pharmacological guidelines. According to the guidelines, dissociative disorder is more of have psychological management, and only comorbidity is dealing with the pharmacological treatment. First of all, obtain medical and psychiatric history from the patient and informants. Carry out appropriate medical and psychiatric examination and arrange investigations for physical causes. Reassure that the condition is temporary, well recognized for motor disorders due to a problem of converting intention into actions. Avoid reinforcing symptoms or disability. Offer continuing help with any related psychiatric or social problem. If a patient came to you with the paralysis that he or she is unable to walk, don't offer wheelchair to her, don't offer stick or support to walk. Reassure them that this is temporary state, this is due to the psychological issue, this is not reason is not physical. If you investigated her earlier, then give them support, educate the family, give them psychiatric and give them social support also. And if you're giving the wheelchair and giving them stick to walk, then these are reinforced. So these will increase their duration of symptomatology. The important considerations in the treatment of dissociative is finding inconsistent with physical and laboratory evaluation found in all cases and required for a convergent diagnosis. Identifiable stress, presence of model for the convergent symptom, and family dysfunction. Family communication that avoids resolving stress and conflict by focusing on illness issues. Secondary gain for the symptoms, find out if there is any secondary gain, if there is any past history for somatic complaints, or if there is any labile indifference. So again, the steps of the psychological management are repo, catharsis, psychoeducation, insight, oriented supportive therapy, identification of stressors, then do cognitive behavioral therapy by identifying the reinforcers, relaxation therapy, including deep breathing, medication, imaginary or muscle relaxation, extinction, contingency management, behavioral contracts, and response cost. Then cognitive restructuring, cost benefit analysis, and coping statements. Family therapy and group therapy can also be done with the dissociative disorder. No particular pharmacological treatment for dissociative disorder. If needed, treat the underlying cause. If patient is anxious, give her anxiolytic. If there is underlying depression, then we can deal with the antidepressants. So this is all about the dissociative disorder, how we label it, what are the important steps in this management, and we give briefly review from the literature. So if you have any question, you can ask under this video. If you like the video, kindly don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.